Warning, this video is intended for adult collectors. It contains plastic collectibles, questionable opinions, and someone that's given too much money to Hasbro. Do not panic. This is just a random review.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1021 of our daily content grind, and today we have to answer a Patreon request, and it's a request for a rather unusual toy. Yes, what you see in front of you is a garish eyesore, because we have to talk about a Euro G1 Transformer today. This is the legendary Calcar, famous for being very high up on my list of worst Transformer names of all time. Now, a Calcar is a bone located in some bats. However, it is also, according to the Webster's Dictionary, a small anatomical prominence or projection. And I have to assume that rather than have like a pun as basic as a calculating car, that the Calcar name has to go in with the actual gimmick, because Calcar is a Trakkon, which is the Decepticon counterpart of the Light Former from the Autobots of the time. If you don't know what that means, we'll get to it. For now, we are going to discuss Calcar himself. Now, of course, this is a Euro G1 toy, so don't expect the review to be terribly long. After all, there's only so much that we can go over. Doesn't mean that this toy isn't fascinating in its own way. So, we have here a very hot pink buggy in a more futuristic styling, which was pretty much what Transformers was doing at the time. Not as many realistic vehicles going on. It's a fun shade. It's a very deep shade of pink. If the camera is not picking it up correctly, or if it just looks red to you, it's the same level of pink that they put on animated RC to kind of look like red, but kind of not. So yeah, you have a very rich, very deep shade of pink going on here, and you're accented with the colors you would expect of a Euro G1 Decepticon, that being baby blue all over the hood of the car, translucent green for the windshield, and of course a bit of bronze painted on the back here. You also have blue surrounding the rim of the tire, as well as some stickers adding some striping detail on the fenders and the quarter panels. There are some very particular decals missing from my particular version of Calcar here, which does include his infamous sword symbol on his chest, which makes him look like Brock Lesnar. So you'll have to imagine those two. I'll show, just look at the picture that's probably on your screen right now, one or the other. So, as a futuristic buggy goes, it's not a bad shape. It's a little bit kind of typical. I do like how there are exhaust pipes sticking out from where the engine would be. Gives it a little bit more character. The roll bar is fine. Nothing terribly exciting about the overall vehicle. Black for the front bumper. That will come into play during transformation. I think what's fun about it is the fact that there are exposed seats, and here, if we can zoom in a little bit and I'll refocus, there is actually something of an interior. You can actually see where the shift is. You can see where the steering wheel is. That's actually pretty rare detail. Remember, most Transformers back then, and even today, they reserve that area where the people are supposed to go to hide robot mode junk. So to have exposed seats in there was actually pretty rare. Even today, that's kind of a rare feature. So cool of them to actually include it. Does make him stand out just a little bit more. Beyond that, it's your standard figure. It's plastic wheeled, but it's pinned, so it rolls decently enough. The big thing to this, the way that Trakkons and Lightformers worked, is the toys themselves just got to be simple, basic Transformers, because the accessory weapon was almost as big as the toys themselves. This is a pretty grandiose accessory. So, cast in a teal green and that same shade of pink, this is a mother of a chain gun. You see sticker detail and a little bit more of the translucent effect on top. That's going to come into play. So, that detail you see there, that V in the center, that's not a decal. That's not paint. That is actually part of how this gimmick works, and it's kind of brilliant. So we'll go ahead and demonstrate it now, because it's better and easier to demonstrate it when it's off of the toy. So you've got this piece on the side, which when you turn it is going to rotate the Gatling gun, the chain gun on the side. It's an old figure, so mine's a little bit grindy, but it still works. Now, the real trick here, however, is the scope at the back. So here's where we have to be very tricky. I will try to zoom in and try to refocus so you can see what's going on in there, because you see those little lasers, you see those little lines. So the idea here is that you put some other character on the other side. If I can actually get Smoke Jumper to actually look like it's in line. Yeah, unfortunately, it's the light is not shining through very well here. But you can kind of see him on the other end there. So the idea is that you look through the scope and then just watch the lasers fire away at your enemy. Of course, my gears start grinding, it doesn't work as well. You will note a little bit of a fallacy with this little gimmick, and the fact that it's firing two lasers, which is fine. It's a chain gun. That's physically impossible. But you know what? It's fantasy alien robot weaponry, so I guess we just have to kind of go with it. Just like the fact that he was just shooting a fellow Decepticon in my fantasy world here. Alright, so if you actually want to interact these two, this does peg onto the back, like so. If I can line up the hole, because it's kind of a blind attachment point. It's it's Energon Ironhide before Energon Ironhide was a thing. It's just a giant pack sticking up the top of the car. The neat thing is that there's actually a monopod on the underside for the robot modes, so that's the part that actually pegs in, which means you actually can have it like, you can tilt it up and down, like it's actually like firing off at aircrafts as well. Just a little bit of play value that probably wasn't intended. So yeah, that's what a Lightformer / Trakkon is. It's an interesting little light gimmick. But yeah, it takes that big block to pull it off, though. So, let's go ahead and transform this and see how it actually functions as a transformer. Like I said, it's Euro G1, so it's not terribly difficult. So, we flip the rear out from the underside rather than going over the top. That alone is actually kind of unique. That's not a transformation you see often. I'm going to go ahead and flip the feet out like so. We get over here to the top of the vehicle. I'm going to go ahead and rotate these down. This needs a little bit of clearance, so I'm going to go ahead and rotate what will become the arms, on these points, so it gives me plenty of room to spin this all the way around and get it to that position. There will be a little tab and a little slot that does make sure they stay connected. That'll reveal the head. And with that done, I'll just swing these parts forward, flip the bumpers to make the fists, and that's Trakkon in his robot mode. So yeah, it's late G1. It's exceptionally simple engineering. No real surprise as to how a toy like this transforms, because of course that's late G1 for you. But a lot of people still like that, and frankly, I still like that. You're talking to someone who will buy like the occasional like Rescue Bot style toy just because it's fun to just have a toy that flips back and forth very, very quickly. Even if it doesn't get a lot of posability, it's still just fun to see a robot transform. So sometimes simple is fine. But once we have him in robot mode, he's actually fairly well proportioned, fairly clean. There's really just nothing hanging off the back of him. The bars on the back of his legs, but that's really about it. Everything else is done pretty nicely. We do reveal a lot of dark gray here, as well as a little bit more black. So it's trying to do what it can. It's trying to do what it can against the big, vibrant pink color and the pastel blue of the torso. Give it credit. It's trying to make him look more menacing. That said, head sculpt is actually pretty good for that once I get it into focus. Thank you. So, a lot of Euro G1 Decepticons kind of had this exact same aesthetic going on, where they had this like weird gas mask style face and very angular helmet. Here's another really good example of that. Also very familiar to a Euro G1 Decepticon, green translucent eyes and copper paint. That's just something they did. It's a way of like unifying a lot of those characters from that era. It is light piped, by the way. Yeah, so it does shine pretty well because it is a very light shade of green plastic. And the eyes are very large. I find that light piping gets really muddled when the eyes are small and there's not a lot of like clearance to let the light shine through. Here, I have no trouble. I don't need a halogen bulb behind his head just to make his eyes look lit up. He looks nice and vibrant here. And yeah, I do like the head sculpt. I do like the Euro G1 overall design ideas. So, as you can see, articulation, you're not really going to get a whole lot here. You know, the shoulders do move up and down. Thanks to the transformation, they can move outward to the side like that. There's no rotation anywhere else, though. Everything else is there. Just the fact that it had universal shoulders is kind of amazing for a toy like this. So I will take what I can get. Remember, back then, posability didn't really matter. Even superhero action figures took a while before they figured out, oh, kids actually want more than 5 joints in these things. So let's finish it off by actually incorporating that weapon again. Like I said, there's a monopod that folds out from it. So this is specifically so he can hold it in robot mode and keep a stable stand. So raise his arms up forward. Find the peg holes in his fists and then find where the pegs are in the gun itself. Like so. Yeah, and then the monopod just keeps the whole toy stable while the whole thing is assembled. And there's your fully armed Calcar. It's a ridiculous weapon, isn't it? It's a ridiculous weapon. It does really make the figure feel a lot bigger, though. Like, once they're all connected and you can see the whole thing, you know, on its own. For what it is, yes, it's very simple, and it is relying heavily on a gimmick. That said, the gimmick is fascinating. I really am impressed by, like, the light trick they pulled off to create the laser effect. That's actually really cool and interesting. I will ignore the fact that it's impossible for a laser gun to come out of a chain gun like that, but I will just chalk this up to just being a neat figure for its time. So that's Calcar. Like I said, aside from a few decals missing, not a bad example of the times that Euro G1 was. So, for those curious, there you go. That is it for the day. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.